3.
So we're back. Sorry, I had to put my kid to bed. I hope he stays. He may not. He has a mind of his own. So listen, someone just asked me about healthcare. I'm struggling to pay healthcare right now myself. And it's the first time since I was in college that I've had that problem. Because, I was put on unpaid leave myself. I was a Delaware North employee. And it's scary. The family issues we're going through right now, some medical issues we're going through right now. And for me personally, the future is uncertain with regard to healthcare in particular. Luckily, we have some savings, and a lot of families don't have those savings. I think it's a tragedy that in this country that people are locked in to employers they may hate or disregard or feel they're not being valued by because they have to hold on to healthcare plans that aren't even that good. They don't even provide that much care. I think that I feel for many of the employees of Delaware North who may eventually lose health care or have to pay for health care themselves. I know they have a little bit of a cushion, but that cushion won't last forever. And I know there's millions and millions and millions of employees who have no health care because they've lost their jobs now. And we have to learn as a society that health care has to be a priority. And if we think about, well, we can't pay for healthcare for everybody. Well, we just gave billions and billions and billions of dollars to Boeing. We gave billions and billions of dollars to other corporations this morning, this evening. We can pay for healthcare for Americans. We don't flinch when we say we're going to give Boeing $50 billion, but we flinch when we say we're going to give our neighbor, annual checkups. It's outrageous. It's wrong. And I think in a society that values, many people in the society consider themselves Christians, including myself. And I think if you truly believe in that creed, or in any creed pretty much, you will care for your fellow man, especially your fellow citizen. And to have no health care for millions of people or people that are losing their health care because they're unemployed, this is going to be an issue. We have an opportunity here, and when there's opportunities like this, the society has to change. And I hope we learn to change. I can tell you right across the border, President Trump wants to put troops at the border, but I live not even, how many miles away from Canada am I?
9 miles.
Probably 5 miles.
Yep.
5 miles away. I could swim there. And all those people have health care. Every single one of them. They all have health care. If Canada can do it, why can't we? Now, Jim, you might disagree with me. ChaRon, you might disagree. Let me hear your thoughts. Come at me.
No, I don't disagree at all. My stepfather is from Scotland. We brought him back over with us. He has been, it blows his mind every time trying to navigate the American healthcare system because you just don't have the issues that we have over here. They talk about rationing. There is no rationing. You go to the doctor when you need to go to the doctor. It's the only right and compassionate thing to do. And I think it's a moral travesty that in America, we consider ourselves to be the leader of the quote unquote free world. And yet we can't figure out a way to give every American one of the most basic human rights.
Jim, how about you? You're a senior. You're young in spirit, certainly, and I don't mean to put you down in any way, but you're senior. You have more years than we do. What is your perspective? Different than ours?
No, it's not. I don't think it is at all. I mean, healthcare is probably one of the things that everybody should have access to. I believe if we better managed our healthcare system, we wouldn't be in the boat we're in right now. I mean, I think that having a system that's fully managed from top to bottom, with everybody having the opportunity to get good health care, is very important and essential within our society. I look at it from my point of view is that I'm fortunate. I do have health care. But then I look at my young son, who basically is unemployed and is searching desperately to turn around and get a health care system under him so that he can be secure and healthy. Right now, there are many people that are going ill because they're not willing to go to the doctor and pay the fortune to get their health care. I believe we need to do something.
This is what happens, guys. When people don't have health care, they put off things until they're very sick and they end up in an emergency room, taking away an intensive care bed when you need it. Or let's just put a basic example. If I have a toothache and I don't have a dental plan, I will wait and wait and wait and look for alternatives to treat that too. Maybe even pulling it out myself. Well, a lot of people do the same thing for serious illnesses, and may do the same thing if they're exposed to this virus, because they're afraid of the cost, because people in this country go bankrupt for medical care. And I always said to people, even before this virus, I've been talking about this since I first stepped into politics. What's the alternative? To tell people to die? That's unacceptable in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And I'm not talking about giving people or giving. They always spin it like this. This is the big scam that the wealthy and powerful do in this country. They'll say, "Well, don't look at us. Look at your neighbor who's stealing healthcare or stealing food stamps." When in the big picture, such theft is small compared to the billions that the corporations receive today in just free money. And I just ask people not to be tricked by the illusion. They try to say, "Look over here," while they're picking your pocket over here. Care for one another. Go ahead.
No, I think that's just the thing. One of the lines that we get is universal health care is going to lead to rationing. And there is no more like not having access to healthcare is rationing. Being afraid to go to the doctor, being afraid to go to the dentist is rationing. Not being able to do so because you don't have money is rationing. We already ration our healthcare.
And go ask your friends who are doctors or physicians or nurses. I'm having a nurse on here on Sunday, by the way, who's on the front lines of this virus. Go talk to somebody and ask them how much admin costs go into the average check at a hospital, or how much overhead is involved, how efficient it truly is, and the fact that they scam you in so many different ways. Out of network costs, you can go to one hospital and be charged 3 different bills because depending on the physician that's servicing you, they may not be part of your network, so to speak. There's a million different little scams they have. And when I say them, I'm talking about the insurance companies. I'm not talking about the physicians. And if you talk to physicians and nurses and people who work in the medical field, they'll tell you more than anybody else how inefficient the whole thing is and how little time they have to give actual care because they're fighting billing codes. They're paying admin costs. They're paying insurance costs. It's a complete disaster. And if that hasn't been exposed after this crisis, I don't know when people will wake up. It's like everybody's under a spell to think everything's good here. America always has the best. America is the best country in the world because our values are great. But we don't have every system that's better than every other system. And I think we can learn from other countries and maybe even leapfrog them and make our system better. Any other questions, ChaRon, on any of these subjects?
Yes, Melissa on Twitch, and these are some questions coming from yesterday that we looked over, but I think they're very relevant. She asked, "What do you see as the most important goal in education?" But it's framed around would you add workforce development options? I mean, we deal with amazing folks in labor and unions every day, and we've unfortunately, my generation has gotten away from apprenticeships, from being able to go into a trade because we've been pushed towards this like demand to go through higher education. So
but
the
I know
question
you,
is,
for example, ChaRon. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
ChaRon, I think, was it you, ChaRon? Somebody on my campaign took up the hobby of steelwork. Was that you?
I had done some metal foundry in college. My My degree was in anthropology, but it was way too cerebral, and eventually you got to get back to working with your hands.
And you loved it.
Oh, of course. I absolutely, I would have, in another life, I would have gone into.
So I'm someone who absolutely valued my education. I loved my education. I loved going to law school. I thought my degree vastly enriched my life, and it had nothing to do with my hands. I wish I had more skill with my hands. I don't. I wish that was more part of my education and my upbringing as a kid. I know what my brothers can do, and my cousins and my friends who are craftsmen and tradesmen. I know what Jim can do. Jim can fix just about anything. I wish I had those skills, and I wish it was more part of my education. We do not value those skills enough. And, you know, we need, there's that song I grew up with as a kid, the classic rock song, the Rush song, the blacksmith and the artist. We need both. So we need both those people involved in our culture. And I think for too long we've neglected trade schools, and we always have a demand for those skills. Right now, we're going into a recession and maybe worse. And I'll tell you what, people are still going to be calling plumbers. People are going to still be calling electricians. Jim's got a whole Rolodex there of the best electricians and plumbers in Western New York. Jim, you want to talk about this for a second? I think you'd have some good insight.
Well, you know, it's important. I mean, I think a college education is extremely important, but the cost of the education today has really gotten out of control. I really value the young people today in high school who actually decide to go into the trades. I call them early decision makers because they're making a decision about what their life's going to be and what their occupations are going to be. And I think that's so important. And I think the trades are extremely important because, as you said, not everybody has the ability to turn around and fix an engine. Not everybody has the ability to do electric inside of a home. Not everybody has the power and the knowledge to do plumbing. God knows that I've tried to do plumbing, and I had to get a lot of time into it, learning how to use that torch to turn around and melt that lead that goes around the piping,
Yep.
around seal it up.
It ain't easy.
It isn't easy. So
No,
I mean,
I've
been doing caulking around a fireplace. I mean, you try and so that's easy, but as soon as you try, you find out it's a mucky mess. But I think that we really need to pay attention and really value the trades because they're so important to our society. But also for young people that go into college and they last 1 year, 2 years, and then find out it's really not where they want to be, and they just kind of don't have no place to go. And I think going into the trades are really important, and they shouldn't be put down. I think that's really important.
We should invest in it. I agree with you, Jim.
And
okay,
the money.
Torin, anything else? Anything else on your mind, Torin?
Well, I think Jane on Facebook asked, had more of a comment with regards to the process that the census is taking. The census is this year. And the current plan of the administration, according to Jane, is to have the enumerators, the folks go door to door, using personal protective equipment. Obviously, that must be done to protect them from the current public health situation. But we have a nationwide shortage. What can we do to help drive?
It's a tough situation. I think I could be wrong, but can't we take there's census information we can do online, correct?
Well, the census is being sent out to everybody right now. Everybody should have gotten their letters, if not 2 letters. I mean, I received my first letter saying go online and use this code. And then 3 days later, I got another letter saying go online and use this code if you haven't done it by the first letter you've gotten. But I think with everybody being quarantined, it may be the thing that everybody ought to pay attention to, maybe do it. But I think door to door and trying to get a good census about where everybody is and where everybody's living is extremely important, and especially when it comes to a representation in our government, especially now.
Well, I think for us in NY27, we have to be especially careful because many of the counties in upstate New York has lost population, and if we don't accurately record every soul, we're going to lose representation in DC when they district, and we just can't let that happen. So I would encourage everybody to make sure they take part in the census. I know there's a lot of disputes and debate about the way the president and his administration is executing the census and how they've crafted the census. but we have to work within the limits that are available to us right now to make sure that we have an accurate and total count. And then hopefully the next time we do this, we'll have a president who values it more and wants to make sure that everyone is counted. Any other questions, ChaRon?
One last one from DB on Periscope. This is a fun one. How do you stay so fit? And perhaps for those watching at home, how can we all stay fit in the era of social distancing?
Listen, I have in general, DB, I don't know who you are, but you might be joking me here. But like, listen, it's something that I hate talking about because it sounds so shallow. But I think that exercise enhances mental acuity. I really do. I really believe when I'm exercising regularly, I think better. So I just make it a priority. I am not in great shape, but there's times in my life where I've been in pretty good shape. And I try to get up in the morning. I run every morning. And I think that every single day, as long as I can remember, I at least walk 1 mile, period. And I try to run or jog or sprint a little bit too every single morning. And I also believe, for me, I like lifting weights and I push-ups and sit-ups and squats and all those things. And everyone, I know ChaRon and my whole staff is going to cringe when I say this, but Jim and I share something in common. And I support the local craft brewery movement. I support all of it. And I support the wineries, the Niagara Frontier, 100%. But Jim, we're pretty much teetotalers, you and I.
Yes, we are. Of course, I can't get off the Pepsi.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I can't get off the Pepsi.
Yeah, I got a problem too with that too. Like maybe we'd be better off having a beer once in a while rather than drinking all the soda we drink. But you drink Pepsi, I drink, God forbid, Diet Mountain Dew. It started in law school. I tried to kick the habit. Sometimes I'll go off in a few months, but I go back. But Jim, what's you're extremely fit for a guy your age. What's your key?
Mine is to always figure out how to keep myself moving. I try to do the 5,000 steps a day. Every time there's, instead of going to the gym, I will turn around and grab a hacksaw or a tree trimmer and go start trimming trees and pulling brush and doing all kinds of things because I want to spend that energy and be productive at the same time. So you'll find me doing all kinds of things around the association here at the landings, pulling leaves, pulling weeds, you name it. But I do move a lot. I think walking is really important. Keep yourself moving is really important. I mean, even if you're going to
living an active lifestyle,
walk with it.
One of the things I do, I got to say, let's say, ChaRon, are you turning this off? Before we hang this up, one of the things I do though is I sleep early. I go to sleep as early as possible, and I get up early. And as part of my running routine, I'm always listening to audiobooks, and I read a lot. Even while I'm doing push-ups, I'll have a book open. It's just something I started in law school, and I don't know. It's just starting a day with exercise. It always helps me have a better day. And even if it's for 20 minutes, I think it's helpful. Even if I was on the road or traveling, I would do it in my room. I just think we have to remember we're in these bodies, and these bodies are what get us around, so we got to value them. Okay, a little bit of a goofy ending there, but I appreciate the question. I appreciate Periscope. How cool is that we're on Periscope? And I appreciate Jim. Jim, are you going to do this with me a little bit more often until we get to this period?
Oh, I definitely think I enjoy this. I think I enjoy listening to you because I think it's important. As I've always told you, we're all looking for a conversation. We're all looking for a way to communicate with each other about things that are so dire to each other. I mean, we all have our pet peeves, and I think this is a great forum for that conversation to talk about what is bugging you today. I mean, the wall still bugs the hell out of me because here we are in a crisis, and we have to bring out a stimulus package, but I know we're spending billions of dollars putting up a wall to Mexico. I mean,
wait, I gotta talk about the Canadian border.
Oh,
I mean, did you hear the whole thing about Trump wanting to put soldiers on the Canadian border?
Yes.
Okay, let's just talk about that real quick. Jim, you and I live on the Canadian border.
Yes.
What's What's the reasoning here?
First,
Are you fearful of an invasion?
well, no. I mean, the other issue is kind of interesting. We live on an island. We face Canada. I mean, our shoreline to Canada. You could walk out and be in Canada if you walk out in the river because the boundary is so close to our Grand Island. And we also know we have cameras that are up and down the entire coastal. So the issue is Homeland Security have had that for years. So the question is, what is the military coming for?
Guys, just so you know, this whole border where we live is covered in cameras, and he says, and not just cameras, sensors, so they can detect movement.
Yes.
If you try to sneak over, good luck. They will have you in 10 minutes.
Oh, they'll have you.
But now when Jim was a kid, Jim, I might be telling stories on you. When Jim was a kid, back in the olden days, sometimes when they would tell Jim, am I telling tales here? I heard people used to take beer over to Canada to sell it.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Well, we also was the other way around back in the Prohibition days. It was the runners that ran it across the river from Canada into the United States, and Grand Island was one of the portals.
But I'm not even talking about Prohibition. I'm talking about when prices were a little bit lower. They would take it to Canada to sell. The kids would take it in canoes and kayaks to Canada to sell.
Yeah.
I've heard lots of seniors telling me these stories.
Well, that's because that's how you become an entrepreneur. Start your own business.
We don't advise that. But the point is, this has always been a very open border. And now it's not as open as it used to be. When I was a kid, we used to be able to walk to Canada. And we used to go to Navy Island, which is like a little island, and camp. And no one would say anything. So, like, you have a very different era today. We admit it. But there is nobody trying to sneak over. And if they were, they'd be caught. Any type of illegal immigration. I mean, I see the Border Patrol every single day. So I don't understand what soldiers are going to do to help us and who's trying to get here. It's just more of a distraction and more of a waste of resources. I don't believe people buy his scams. I can't. If anybody who lives here thinks this is a necessary move, I ask them to try to explain it to me. Go ahead, Jim. Your thoughts?
I would agree. I mean, we watch the border all the time, and of course, it's got as good and as bad. I said, but the issue is, the old days I used to sail in Canada. Every weekend and every Wednesday night, I would race boats out of Niagara Lake, which is up in Canada, and we would take the trip up, straight back. Today, you're not going to do that so often. If you got a boat, you better not store it up in Canada because it's going to take you a while to get to it today. I think we've overreacted a great deal on our border controls, but I guess there's terrorists out there that we don't know about. But they've always been.
Let me say this: there's domestic terrorists too, Jim. I mean, the thing is, I'm not sure. Let's be honest. Our trade with Canada dramatically benefits Western New York. There's a reason why every single mall